Brad.
Yes.
Dude. Dude, I can't believe it's like, wait, say a few more words.
Say, hey, Chris, how's it going today? How's the weather in Colorado?
This is crazy. It's like I'm used to hearing your voice on your podcast, and now you're on my podcast.
Hey, it's the same way. I hear your voice on your podcast, and now I'm on your podcast.
Right? Totally cool.
Pretty awesome. Thank you for inviting me on.
Yeah. I just,
awesome.
I mean, come on. We've been talking on and off for a little while. So
yeah.
Wait, so that picture you sent me in the email, which is going to be in the show notes, is that where you're sitting right now?
The picture of our equipment?
Yeah, the picture of the table with the 3 mics.
Yes, that's exactly the setup that we use.
And that's where you're sitting now?
That is where I'm sitting right now.
And is that in your house, I guess?
Yeah, it's our dining room in our house.
That's so cool. Yeah, if you're listening to this, obviously go check out the picture. But well, look, I can't have Brad Hargis on my podcast show and not give him a little intro music and some grunting. So, and of course Barry. So here we go.
Of course.
Feel free to grunt along if you want.
All
Brad.
right.
Oh my goodness! You made it here again. You probably butt dialed the show. Like you just all of a sudden, like the phone in your pocket just started playing this idiot's voice and this music. Anyway, welcome.
It did, and you answered.
And I answered. So welcome to the Podcast Engineering Show. I'm Chris Curran. I produce podcasts for all kinds of companies, and I also run the Podcast Engineering School, teaching people how to produce podcasts at a truly professional level, like for real professional, not like, oh, plug in your ATR mic and hit record. Way beyond that. Every week on this show, we really talk shop. We really get into podcast production, the technical aspects, right? It's all about the technical aspects on this show.
Oh, absolutely.
And I talk with all kinds of awesome guests. Today, Brad is here with me. I'm so psyched that you're here. Just so everyone knows, April 16th is when the next Podcast Engineering School starts. April 16th, and there's some really good early bird pricing available right now, of course. And Brad Hargis is here.
Oh, forget it.
I'm telling you.
Thank you for having me on, Chris. And Barry, I got to thank Barry too.
I didn't even do your official introduction yet, and so Barry, just real quick, Barry, while you're on the mic here, Barry, I just wanted to ask you, what do you think Brad Hargis is going to need? I mean, look, the guy is the co-host of the Cinema Guys podcast. Barry, you listen to the Cinema Guys, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And he's a co-host with his other co-hosts. Well, one is the Cinemaiden.
Yes.
And your other co-host is Justin.
Justin.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Okay, good. See, I'm not an idiot. Okay. Anyway, what is Brad Hargis going to need to really have a good appearance on this show? What is Brad going to need to have a good chat with me right now?
There's no activity.
Oh, wait, I hit the wrong button. Oh, no. Oh. All right. What is he going to need, Barry?
You're going to need a couple of horses or a couple of mules.
So, I mean,
that's always my favorite clip whenever you play that one.
Mules will do, Brad. If you don't have a couple horses, if you have a couple mules hanging around. And
I got a few in the backyard if I need them.
So the Cinema Guys, I'm telling you, I think... Well, you and I talked maybe a year or two ago.
About a year ago, yeah.
And I don't remember. I think I might have found your show before we talked, but I'm not sure. Maybe after we talked, I started listening to your show. But you guys have a really great podcast. And sometimes in the morning, I put it on while my wife and I are sort of like in the kitchen having breakfast and, making coffee and all this stuff. And it's just great. You the three of you have such a great dynamic, and it's just great. But I will say that I had to stop listening to one of your recent episodes. You talked about the Aquaman movie.
Yes.
And I had to stop listening halfway through. Like when you said spoiler alerts were coming, I actually stopped because I'm like, I might go see this within another week or two. At this point, I pretty much have decided I'm not going to go see it. So now I got to go back and finish that episode.
Yeah, we do spoil everything. So if anyone does pick it up, know that we will spoil the movie.
Right. And then so people should go watch the movie first and then listen to your show. It's great.
Oh, absolutely. And we make sure we let you know that.
It's
beforehand,
so cool. Like,
so you're not shocked.
It's so much fun to talk about movies and you guys have a really great dynamic. Anyway, and I was listening to one of your
thank you.
Well, several of your recent episodes, including the last one you did was your 2018 wrap up.
Our best and worst,
which was pretty fascinating. And you guys mentioned a bunch of for your best movies, your best picks. You mentioned a bunch of movies that haven't seen. So I'm like, oh, see, now I got to go see that because
so you're writing down your list and
yeah. And you guys, and by the way, if you're listening to this, we are going to get to podcast production, but I'm just so psyched to talk to Brad from the Cinema Guys. Is there some sort of an app or something that you three use to keep track of what you watch and all that?
Oh, yes. It's called Letterboxd. It's Letterboxd because, they don't like E's anymore whenever they create things now. So it's a great app that you can rate it 1 to 5 stars. So that way we can keep track. It was nice, especially for our best of, to look back to see, oh, I did see this movie. I forgot about this one.
Right. And I know your co-hosts were completely bashing you about Aquaman.
Oh yeah, I'm the one on the show that likes bad movies, so I get it a lot.
Right, and
I think it's the fun of our dynamic.
It is, and
I
then
like the bad movies, and
yeah, and then you give your reasons, and then they bash you a little more. But it was funny. I forget which episode it was. You literally because you're the one who produces the show, the audio itself.
Oh yeah. I do. They
started bashing you a little, and then all of a sudden I could tell that in post production you inserted another piece. You're like, all right, I have to break in here and explain something. That was awesome.
Because I was like, wait a second, I just kind of shut down that night. I'm like, I need to explain this a little bit.
That was great. I think that was the Aquaman episode. That
was our best of.
The best of. That was a good one. So those guys just literally show up at your house and you hang out and record, and then they go away.
We hang out. Usually, we don't actually get to recording until about an hour into it. I always say we got to get the sillies out. It's putting them in front of the mic, and they kind of get kind of squirrely. We get that out, and then we can record.
Really? What are they? Because the energy on the show is quite lively and awesome.
Oh, yeah. It's even more lively beforehand. Usually, if you listen all the way to the very end, I put just a little piece of whatever that is at the very, very end.
Oh. So when I looked at your website...
if you make it that far.
And I was looking for some pictures of you guys. There's not many pictures of you. Yeah, anyway.
No. That's the one thing we don't have on our website is pictures of us.
See, it keeps the mystery and intrigue. Remember back in the days, like in the 80s is when I was that age, when I was a young teenager, and you'd buy an album and like you would listen to a band and like you never saw a picture of them. You just didn't know what they looked like.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I'd always pull out the sleeve and look and like, oh, this doesn't have lyrics. I wanted to sing along.
Right. Yeah, like I there's been bands I listened to several albums and I literally never knew what they even looked like. And then one time then you'd see a picture, you'd be like, oh, this is what they look like?
And then you think, oh, there's a reason why I didn't see this before.
Oh my God. All right, so we got to do the speed round, Brad.
Of course.
Well, let me first ask Barry. Barry, I was going to try and... It's hard to put in clips of Barry, sometimes I try to force it and it doesn't make sense, But, I mean, it's just, like, for instance, this is one of my favorite clips. I always try to work it in.
It's a mess.
I mean, dude, it's a mess. Is that not the best clip ever?
That one's good. I still like the mules.
What about
mules? I like that.
What about when we talk about Ralph Rivera and his show, which he just pretty much restarted? the Web Search Social podcast. I don't know if you're into marketing and all that stuff. The Web Search Social podcast with Ralph M. Rivera and his wife Carolyn Rivera. Barry's listened to that. Barry, what was your opinion on Ralph's show?
There's no activity, no giggle, no nothing.
that one's always good too.
Yeah. So you see, Brad, you're gonna make me go deep into the into the bag here.
I want you to pull out some that you haven't used in like many episodes.
All right, here's one.
And they were cussing up a storm. Profanities left, profanities right.
And then the addendum to that one.
Every second word was a F word.
I love that one. They were cussing up a storm. That was the time Barry was telling me, because he used to take the bus to work, and he told me he was on the bus home one night. He said there were these two young women, girls really. He said they were probably like 19 or 20. And this is what he said.
And they were cussing up a storm. Profanities left, profanities right.
Because Barry's an old guy. So, all right, speed round. Let's do it.
Speed round.
All right, so take us through. Well, you know the speed round, but for everyone else, Brad's going to take us through just quickly, like the microphones, what it's plugged into, where he's recording it, quickly how he does, on what software he does post-production, and then how he finalizes the episode. All right, cool.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't have the big podcast studio or anything. I'm full, I guess you could say, I don't know, amateur. We're all independent podcasters here, right?
No,
so
you're above amateur, bro, by the way.
we do this in my dining room of my house. So I have 3 mics that I use, and we all sit around the table. 3 different mics, an ATR 2100, a Knox USB XLR mic, which is kind of like an ATR knockoff, hence the Knox, and then a Pile Pro PD Mic 58. And they're all plugged in XLR to my Mackie Pro FX8 V2 mixer. And I record those on 2 small recorders, an eVister. They're fairly cheap recorders I got on Amazon. One's my backup recorder and one's my main record. I used to do it on a computer, but I live in a 100-year-old house, so I used to get a really bad buzz from the computer. So I switched straight to the recorders, and I don't have that problem anymore.
That's cool. All right, so you put it on the recorders.
Yep. Once I get it recorded, I bring it into Audacity, and I run a noise reduction on it first to kind of get some of that whatever, background noise out of it. After that, I'll split it to mono, and because when I record myself on the left channel, the Cinemaiden and Justin on the right channel, so that way if there's any overlaps I need to cut later, I can. So when I split it to mono, I run a compressor on each channel separately to kind of bring the peaks down so it's all kind of level. And then I amplify it back up to -1 dB, so my sound's back up before I put a noise gate on it, and then I go through the edit. And then once I'm done editing, I kind of, as I like to put my final gloss on it, I run it through Auphonic. And then for me, this part's a little different than I think some other podcasters, is I bring my WAV file when I'm done into iTunes and convert it into an M4A file and do all my tags and artwork and stuff in there before I upload it to Blueberry.
Oh, okay. So your final file is an M4A?
Yes, it is.
So M4A, it's typically a video file or no?
No, that's at like Apple's audio, kind of their MP3, so to speak.
Really?
Yeah. That's it. Like if you buy any music from iTunes, that's what file format it would be in. Whereas like Amazon, Google, stuff like that will be an MP3 file. Apple, I mean, I'm full Apple in my house, so it was kind of like it gives me a really good audio quality, but a fairly small file size, and that's just kind of how I went with it, and it works.
Yeah, and I just looked it up here, and it says that it's encoded with the AAC encoder, which is Well, some people say that AAC encoding is better than MP3 because it ends up being a smaller file and it either sounds just as good or even better.
Yeah, my file size is usually pretty small. Like I convert it to 96K 44.1 stereo when it goes to the M4A, and an hour long episode would be about 35-40 megs.
And so the M4A file is I'm assuming it's compatible with all the directories like Apple Podcasts and Spotify, as well as all the podcasting apps.
Yeah, because we're on pretty much every service you could think of, and I have all kinds of podcast apps on my phone, so I check it every week just to make sure like the file plays on some of them, just kind of spot check them. But
right.
Yeah, they
cool.
play, and I know that was one of the things I asked you when I talked to you, before, was I knew you had an Android, so I asked if the file plays okay on your Android since I use a M4A.
Right.
And you said there's no issues.
Right.
So I just roll with it.
Yeah, no, that's good. That's good. I mean, some people, even with the AAC encoding, some people were saying that that's going to replace MP3s, but that's. Obviously, that might take a while. Even if it does happen, it'll take a while.
Yeah.
Or it might never happen. But because that's another question. Like true. MP3, like MP4 is a video file typically, right? So
I know their Apple's like video is at M4V, I believe is what it's tagged as. Like if you bought a movie from iTunes, that's what it would be.
Right. Yeah. An MP4 is. It's a container format most commonly used to store video and audio. But yeah, anyway, the reason I'm bringing it up is like, well, why not the MP5 or the MP6? Like, where are we going to improve this more, or we're just going to? I mean, MP3s have been around for what, 25 years? Long time.
It's been a while. And I know the M4A came out whenever Apple really started with this iTunes store. So however long that's been. So I don't
iTunes
know.
Store was what, like 2004-ish?
Maybe.
Or a little before that.
It's been a while. Yeah, probably a little before that. Whenever the iPod, shortly after the iPad was what, 2001, I think, was the first one. And then
oh, wow.
You had to convert all your stuff yourself then, and then the store eventually came.
That's right. The iPad came first before the iPhone, correct?
The iPod, iPhone, then the iPad.
Oh, okay. You're talking about iPod. Okay, got it.
The iPod.
I misheard it.
Yeah, that's my basic. I guess that would be the my big difference is the M4A file.
Yeah, that's interesting. And so because we're gonna go back and pick through all this and talk about it. But I just want to ask about the editing. So like you're doing the audio production. So your co-hosts, like you said, they show up and they, you guys are a really tight little team. You got a really good dynamic going on. That's awesome. But then post-production is just you. So
yes.
Do you just use your judgment when you're editing, or do you let those guys hear it? Do they ever say, hey, can you do this or that?
No, they trust me with it. So they always say, you do a great job making us sound good. So they just let me go, and I just make my calls as I go and just put together a show.
That's cool.
I used to, when we first started this, I used to go through and cut like all kinds out. Like I got to make sure I get every and every and any strays, trying to cut that out to make it. I just want to talk about the movie. But then I was like, you know what? This is part of our fun, is the three of us playing off each other. And I'm like, let's just kind of cut back on it. I'll take some uhs, and little taps on the table, stuff like that out, but a lot of it is what we record that night. I just leave it in.
And did you have to train your co-hosts in the beginning to like stay on the mic and this and that?
Yeah, it's still a struggle sometimes because especially Justin, he tends to turn away from the mic sometimes, but we've done it long enough now that he'll see me and I'll just point at him and he knows to come back on the mic, or they kind of train themselves to stay more with it than when we first started.
Right. Yeah. I was going to mention that just from hearing it, just because, when I produce a lot of episodes over the internet, I have clients and guests that connect, and like I can, as soon as a guest connects, I can pretty much hear what mic they're using, how close they are, whether it's earbuds. Like, you just get good at recognizing things quickly. Yeah. And one thing about your show, the Cinema Guys, is that, Justin, you could tell sometimes he's drifting off mic.
Yeah.
You're very consistent, but you don't seem like you're like 1 inch away from the mic. You seems like you're maybe 3, 4, 5 inches. But the Cinemaiden, a lot of times, she sounds like she's 1 inch from the mic, and at times her voice sounds like the most clear and upfront and present, because I think that's because she's getting closer to the mic. So am I correct in my?
You are correct. She's fairly close to the mic. I'm probably 3 inches or so away. Mm-hmm. And Justin, he can get close, but then he can drift away sometimes. But yeah, you nailed it.
Did you ever try using? No, because you're recording yourself on one track and you're recording Justin and the Cinemaiden on the other track, right?
Correct.
So, because one thing, here's already one thing, like if you ever want to upgrade or, try to, improve, not that it needs improvement, but you know what I'm saying? Like one thing you could do instead of recording with 2 tracks, you could get like a Zoom H6 or even a Sound Devices Mix Pre 3 or Mix Pre 6, and then you could record all 3 of the voices on their own track. So then you'd have 3 tracks. And then what you can do, because you're in the same room, a great thing to do when you have like 3 or 4 mics in the same room is to try the Auphonic multi-track processing.
Okay. I have not tried that one.
Yeah, so that one's cool because you feed in you could even feed in 2 tracks, but 2, 3, or 4 tracks or 5 tracks, whatever. And it knows, like it detects the level on one track. So like, let's say you're talking, right? And Justin and the Cinemaiden are not talking. Multi-track Auphonic will basically mute their tracks. Like it'll bring down their level all the way. And then, but when they speak, it'll open up and let them speak. So all the mic
almost
bleed,
like a gate kind of, sort of.
Exactly. Yeah. Cross gating. That's what it's called. The feature is called the cross gate. And it's really handy because that cuts down on the room noise a lot, actually. Like room noise, meaning when you're talking, your voice is bouncing around the room and going into their mics slightly.
Yeah. Slightly, yeah. Because when I edit it, there is the, their side. You can kind of see that I am on that side because we're all in the same room. It's not a treated room because it's my dining room. So we're getting some reverb off the walls.
Yeah, but really not much, though. I mean, in fact, from seeing the picture and from what I'm hearing, like, whatever noise, you said you're using noise reduction in
Audacity.
Oh, Audacity.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I do. I bring it all into Audacity, and then noise reduction is the first thing I do on the track before I compress and amplify and edit.
And that noise reduction, what are you getting rid of by using that noise reduction?
Any of the noise, like for instance, right now my heater's running. Like if there's any of that white noise in the background or anything like that.
Got it.
Try to kind of cut some of that noise down.
Right. So that's good, but so it's not a de-reverb though. So so that's good. It's good. The 3 of you are in one room, and being close to the mics makes a huge difference. Yeah.
Yeah. I never had much experience with audio before we started this podcast. We've been doing it a little over 2.5 years. And I've just, since I started, it's kind of like been a sponge to try to learn, like, listen to as many shows as I can of how-tos and just different techniques and trying different things and just kind of work my process up as we went. Because we started, our show started out with a kind of like a lot of podcasts, a snowball in the middle of the table, and we just talked around it.
Nice.
Oh, you can definitely hear the room noise then.
Yeah. And when you started, was it all 3 of you from the get-go?
When we started, it was our first episode was just Justin and I, and then it was another guy there were 3 of us, and then he had to leave the show, and we brought in the Cinemaiden. She'd been a guest a few times, and then we asked her, we're like, it works. The 3 of us work. Like, we want you to be part of this show. And she officially came out. I think episode 24 was her first one. Oh. And we're going to record episode 69 this week. So
nice.
We've been rolling ever since.
So I would love nothing more than for your show to blow up and all that. I don't know how many listeners you get, but I hope you have a lot of listeners because it's a good podcast in terms of it's fun and it's like if you're into movies and stuff, like you guys do talk about real, like you get into it, which is it's not just like, oh, I didn't like that, it sucked. Like it's way deeper than that. So I like it.
I mean, we look at it as we're actually changing our tagline soon to be 3 friends left unsupervised to chat about movies. We just love movies, and we're just sitting here at the table talking about them. So,
oh, one thing I thought of like 10 minutes before we were recording today. This is what I thought. You guys, again, this is just a dumb idea from Chris, right? Just everyone keep that in mind. You 3 should find like famous scenes in movies that have 3 people and reenact the scene on the show.
I actually like that idea.
That'd be so cool. like Justin could be Joe Pesci or something. The whole thing. It'd be great.
I like that idea. I do.
Or like even a love scene would be more embarrassing, like with the Cinemaiden and Justin or something. Or maybe it's just a 2-person scene and you guys draw straws to see which 2 have to act it out or something.
That's a great idea. I'm going to actually bring it up with him this week when we record.
like famous. It had to be like the most famous scenes ever, right? Because people need to know.
Because that way people could play it in their head and be like, oh, I remember seeing this in a movie.
Yeah. So, all right, so the 3 mics you got the ATR 2100, obviously a good solid mic.
Everybody knows about that mic.
Everybody knows. But the other 2, not so much. Let's start with the Pile Pro. It's a PDMI or a PD mic 58.
Yeah. It's basically kind of like a knockoff to a Shure 58.
Got it.
Which, I mean, my whole setup is very budget. As my wife tells me, and she's like, once your podcast starts making money, you can buy more stuff.
Yeah.
like I love gear. Like I watch Bandrew's videos all the time just because I'm like, oh, this is just cool to see. Or when people talk about gear, like on your show, I'll Google all of it just to see what all of it is and what they use. And because ever since I started this, I'm like, oh, I like to know what's out there.
That's awesome.
I just had to go a little bit of a cheaper side than some people right now.
But the cool thing is you're using inexpensive stuff, but you're putting out a good sounding show. You really are. I mean,
thank you.
It's way above average. Let's put it that way. It is really way above average. So the Pile Pro, who uses that one?
Justin uses that one.
Okay, Justin uses that one.
Yeah, I use the ATR 2100.
Right.
And then the Cinemaiden uses the Knox Gear. It's USB XLR mic. It kind of looks like an ATR 2005 because it has that squared off end.
Okay.
But it has the on-off switch, just like an ATR with the USB XLR plug on it and everything. We tried, for a few episodes at least, she got a Yeti Pro from work. And she's like, I want to try this mic. And I'm like... Yeah. At first I was like, all right, we can try it. But it was one of those, like, the gain on that mic was all the way down. The gain on my mixer was pretty much all the way down. So otherwise it was picking Justin and I up like crazy.
Yeah. And
then she eventually was like, I don't like how I sound in that. I'm not going to use it anymore. I'm like, okay, cool. Makes it easier for me.
Okay. Interesting. Do you happen to know any particular episodes where she was using that Blue Yeti? I'd love to.
Off the top of my head, I don't.
Okay. Well, there you go. So listeners, if you want, go go back in the catalog of the cinema guys and try to find it.
See if you can pick it out.
And do you mention the Cinemaiden's name? I think you mentioned her name, right? Her real name?
Oh yeah, it's come out a few times. It's one of those I've asked before because I used to cut her whenever Justin would say her name or anything like that. I used to cut it out, and then eventually I asked. I was like, "Do you want people to know?" She's like, "Oh yeah, I don't care now." Like, but she still goes by the Cinemaiden. Right. But if we say Ashley, it's like, oh, okay. No big deal.
Because I saw something of you guys on YouTube as well, and you were there, Justin was there, and on her camera was like...
the Chewbacca?
Yeah, it was like a it was like a doll or something. It wasn't her.
Yeah.
So anyway,
it was before she really wanted to know who she was. And then when we started to do live events at screenings, doing movie screenings and stuff like that, obviously people are going to see her. So...
Right.
Then she kind of loosened up a little bit on that instead of she still has the Cinemaiden though.
Well, how is she going to handle the fame when your show blows up though?
I don't know. Because we'll have to wait and see.
I know.
I know. Recording the one I wanted to say I do a different process for like when we're out in the field. I don't know if you listen to our Comic Expo episode.
No, I didn't hear that one.
Like we recorded us about the expo normally in here, and then when I record interviews there, I do everything on my iPhone. Like I connect my ATR to my iPhone and use Ferrite to record it, and then bring everything into Audacity and work it through from that.
Right, Ferrite. That's a Mac iOS app, right?
Yeah, for the iPhone.
Yeah, iPhone and iPad.
Yeah.
And apparently, Ferrite apparently is like multi-track and stuff. Like I think you can do a lot with that.
I think so. I mostly have used it only to record. I've tried editing with it, but I'm like, editing on my iPhone is a little harder than
right
on my computer.
Right. That's always interesting when these companies, these apps are like, oh, and you can even do it on your, you can edit on your iPhone. And it's like, anyone like you or I who's done any editing, it's like you would never edit on your iPhone because it would take forever.
It did take. I mean, it was only like a 7-minute piece of audio, but it felt like it took forever. It has some great features, but yeah.
Now the table you're sitting at, it's a long table, and two of you
Correct.
are sitting at the long ends, and one person sitting in the middle
on the side.
On the side, Who's sitting where?
Justin sits on the far end, and then the Cinemaiden sits on the side.
Okay.
I try to put Justin to where we're both in his eye view, because then he doesn't have the tendency to turn away from the mic too much.
Right.
I try to plan it all out.
That's really good, because I was going to say the person who's sitting like where the Cinemaiden is sitting, she is in a position where she's going to have to turn her head to see either one of you.
Yeah, and she does a good job of staying on the mic and just turning her head on either side of the mic when she's talking towards either one of us.
Yeah, that's cool. So yeah, you keep your mouth near the mic and you swivel your head. Yeah,
like she'll go from one side of the mic to the other.
Yeah, that's good mic technique.
Oh yeah, she's got it down.
That's good. All right,
and it's one of those. I think the more we do it, obviously you pick it up.
Yeah, that totally. Yeah, like once like the first 5 or 10 podcasts you do, you're like it's just weird being near a mic and all this stuff, but then then you get used to it. Like even now, like I have a client who, well, he just all of a sudden started lip smacking a lot, and so I actually had to mention it to him. I'm like, hey, by the way, I don't know why you started doing this, but it's are you doing it for a reason? And he's like, oh, no, I don't know. He's like, all right, I'll stop. I won't do it. The other thing he does is like after a sentence, he'll be really close to the mic. He'll be talking because I told him, when you talk, be 1 inch from the mic. That's what I told him. And so he listens. He's good. And he'll finish a sentence and he'll take a breath in through his nose like,
oh, yeah.
And he's so close to the mic that breath is like the loudest thing ever.
And those sometimes are hard to get out because you trying to get that. Oh, you can hear it as either talks or you're like,
So what I started, I started trying to use the D breath in RX-7. Well, it's called breath control actually, and it actually does work really well. But sometimes I literally have to cut the wave of that breath and just turn it down like 9 or 10 dB. Because if you take it out altogether, then it sounds really awkward. It just like he stops talking and then it stops, and it's in dead silence, and that's totally unnatural. So
I do something. I think I heard Steve Stewart was on your show one time. A technique that he uses is where if it's something like that, he'll do a fade in or fade out at the beginning or ending of what they say, so it just kind of naturally just fades away. So I've kind of like I use that technique when it's not too hard of a cut if I have an issue as I'm editing.
Yeah, that's a great little technique. Little fades, like a quarter of a second, just a quick fade in or a quick fade out. That's really good, and that's especially handy when people start to slur things together.
Oh yeah,
like especially when they start the sentence with I think, or well, I think if it, and like you got to
like,
you want to cut off
and then just start talking.
Oh, but anyway, the episode that came out today, actually, the day we're recording this is actually just because a lot of the listeners to the show are just maniacs. They love the details. But we're recording this on January 24th, which is a Thursday, which my episode with Jennifer Longworth came out today. And she and I were talking about editing, and she was saying that like sometimes like the first like half a sentence or the first several words or the first sentence even, she'll cut it off because she's like, does that really need to be there? She'll just cut out like a sentence. It's great, right? If it's filled with ums and so and up.
Oh yeah.
So
yeah, if there's too much in there, I'll like, is there a natural to keep the flow but cut this piece out?
Right.
And if it doesn't work, then well, I guess I leave part of it in or whatnot.
So then you got the 3 mics plugged into the Mackie Pro Effects 8 V2. So
correct.
Pro Effects is a line of Mackie mixers, which is I think typically used for live performances or live recording, stuff like that. Because there are some effects on it as well, I think, right?
Yeah, there are.
Yeah.
There are. I used one of them on our Halloween episode, and it like freaked the two of them out. They were like, what?
What was it, like reverb or something? Big reverb?
Yes, it's where it made me sound like I was like the Halloween episode kind of.
Oh, cool.
But other than that, I've never messed with that part.
Yeah, the effects are. It's interesting. It's probably. For music, right? If you're playing guitar and you just want to add a little reverb or a little delay, that's really helpful. But for podcasting, so you got the 3 mics plugged into that Mackie mixer, and
they're all plugged in XLR.
Okay,
and then I use one recorder's just plugged through the main out. I use the 3.5 millimeter to dual. 1/4 inch from the main out to that recorder. That's my main recorder that I use because the recording on that one sounds better than the other one because the other one's just like a cheap $10 one I bought just to have a backup.
That's good. Oh, having a backup is great. I'm glad.
I've lost a couple episodes because of either not the backup or one time I forgot to turn, because I record from the main out, I forgot to turn the main volume up. So it wasn't sending a signal out at all. So we recorded this great episode, and I brought it into Audacity. It was just a straight line. I was like, no. Lessons learned when you podcast.
That is rough, but we've all done that. I've even done that.
Yeah.
It doesn't, it just happens. So
yeah. Oh, absolutely. So now there's like the checklist of like, okay, I gotta make sure this one's up and then
right. Yeah, and seeing level. Actually, one thing I could mention when you're about to start recording, like, because here's the thing: you probably have you do have the same equipment set up every time, and they're using the same mixer and the same inputs, but sometimes like a knob will get nudged or pushed or something. So like, you should like the best place to check the level for the microphones is actually on the recorder itself. So you can look at your mixer and say, okay, I see level there. That's fine. But even better, and you should do that quickly, but then look at the actual recorder. So when you talk into your mic, is the level moving on the recorder itself?
Oh, yeah. And that night, I just didn't. Now, since then, every time we record, when we're doing the kind of getting the giggles out at the beginning, I record it, and then I'll stop the recorder and play it back just to make sure it's recording everybody's mic, and then we're good to go.
That's cool.
Just a little test.
Yeah, that's really good. Okay, so then you recorded onto the eVister L53. I don't know what that is. I'm going to look that up real quick. It's just a little handheld recorder?
Yeah, a little small handheld recorder. I think I got it for like $35 on Amazon because I just wanted a recorder. And obviously I'm on a budget, so I had to find something fairly cheap.
That's interesting.
A Zoom H6 is on the wish list someday. But
yeah. And
only because it would be much easier to set up and tear, because I have to set it up and tear it down every time we record because I have 2 small children that would just play with it, or, it's on the dining room table. We want to use that.
Right. Yeah, so that's the other thing. You have to set up and you do a weekly show, so every week.
Well, we do every other week. We do a shorter one in between that we call the Cinemaiden, that we just record that. Like I'll record that's usually I'll record it on my phone. Like I'll sit in my car and record it on my phone.
Okay.
Since I don't want to take the time to set up all the equipment for like a 3-minute audio.
Got it.
When it's a full hour, then it makes sense.
Yeah, that's interesting. I just realized that in a way that's what I'm doing with my show right now is like I've decided in 2019 that every other week is going to be an interview like this, and then the weeks in between is going to be me sort of overviewing the little tiny blog posts I'm doing every day.
The daily goodies.
The daily goodie, and oh my God, dude, I can't tell you, like, there's a guy, and I know he's listening, so hello, sir. There's a guy who keeps commenting on these daily goodies, like he wants a 19-page blog post that answers every single question he ever thought of in his entire life. And because it's a very short thing, it doesn't answer every question. It's just every day a little piece of knowledge. And first comment was not bad. Second one was a lot longer and like, oh, this is terrible. He just bashed me, and it's like, so now on every daily goodie at the bottom, I have to write in there. Here, I want to read what I write. Okay, tell me if you like this, Brad. Brad Hargis from the Cinema Guys. We are the cinemaguys.com, right?
That's right. We are the Cinema Guys. And funny story how we ended up with that, because Justin and I started the show, so we came up with the Cinema Guys. Okay, we're just a couple of guys with the show. And then when we brought Cinemaiden on, we had quite a discussion on, do we change the name? Do we keep the name? And at that point, I didn't have a .com. It was I self-hosted it on another site. So when we were coming up, I was like, well, we started this guide. I want to keep it because we have this logo, and I just think we look at it as like one of the guys, hey, just one of the guys come in. So we just ended up with wearethecinemaguys.com because it was available. And then I was like, should I change the show to be wearethecinemaguys.com? And like, I know it can be very, since we have 2 guys and one woman on our show, and you see Cinema Guy, so lady. 2 guys, 1 lady, and you see Cinema Guys, that can kind of, I feel, sometimes be misleading. That's why our newer artwork, I put all three of our like emoji faces on it so people could say, oh, there's a little different dynamic to it. And that's what we like. We're like, we like the dynamic of that, not just three guys hanging out.
Right. I just thought of a question I literally thought of about a week ago to ask you. Does the Cinemaiden like Iron Maiden?
I don't know. I'm going to ask her that.
I'm curious. I mean, come on. These things are, in a way, they're important. All right. So at the bottom of every Daily Goodie, I wrote this quote, and I'll do it like Dan Carlin from Hardcore History. Quote, and please keep in mind, the Daily Goodie is only a tiny little tip, fact, or lesson every day. Please don't expect any of these posts to be long, earth-shattering masterpieces that instantly answer every single question you can think of and completely transform you into a world-class podcast engineer. In quotes, little by little, a little becomes a lot.
I like it.
End quote.
And then
that's for that guy. That's for you, buddy.
When you do the full episode in between the interviews, you can expand upon what that Daily Goodie is. Yeah, I do. I cover like the last couple weeks worth. So I cover about 10 or 12 or 14 different subjects in that one little quick episode. I've only done one so far. Well, I should say two, but because we're recording this early and I get confused. But okay, so let's move on to your 15-inch MacBook Pro. Is it a newer computer, or is it one you've had for a while? It is a newer computer. It's about a year old, so it has a quad core i7 in it, 16 gigs of RAM. So it's got a little power behind it.
Cool. And then you bring in the audio and you bring it into Audacity. And Audacity, have you liked Audacity? Is it ever given you problems, or is it pretty stable?
I've never ran into too many issues as I've done it. It's pretty cool. For the most part, pretty solid.
Very good. Yeah, I know some people, they will use Audacity, obviously, because it's free. And then, if you don't save your work and something like the program crashes, then you might lose a bunch of your work. So,
almost had that happen once, but the program, I don't know what happened. It because I got the little beach ball spinning. I was like, no, I haven't saved this yet. But then it ended up saving, so we didn't lose it.
Okay.
Thank goodness.
So you use noise reduction, we talked about, that's first. And then you use a compressor to compress the audio. Now, is that just like a stock compressor in Audacity?
Yeah, stock compressor. And then I kind of bring everything down. So like the peaks and stuff, I bring it, compress it basically down so it's all fairly on one level. Right. So you don't have too many loud and low points.
Right. Speaking of loud and low points, the Jennifer Longworth episode, which, well, if you're listening to this, it came out a couple episodes ago. She was so dynamic on her microphone. I mean, at times she was loud and at times she was really soft. And I think for my students at Podcast Engineering School, I think I might make a video of showing how I processed her voice, because I use several compressors and my vocal rider and the multi-band compressor. Like I really did a lot, but I needed to compress it, but have it still sound good. And I don't know. But the other thing with that is like I actually enjoy doing that stuff. So like to me that was like a little challenge, and I was like, ooh, now I get to play with this for 30 minutes or 45 minutes to try to mix her voice as best I can. Like I love that personally. Do you ever feel like that? Are you?
I actually love I love our recording, but I do love the after recording. Like I like to hear what it sounds like, and I like to go through and edit and cut pieces and put it all together into this one file. Like I enjoy that part of it. I know a lot of people like, oh, I got to edit this now.
Right.
But I really enjoy it. Like as I listen back going, oh, I forgot we talked about this, because you're in the moment that night. And then I've never done edited someone else's audio, so I don't know if I would still feel the same way if I did that, but I enjoy ours.
That's cool. Yeah, I feel the same way, and that's what I mean. If you're gonna do this kind of work, if you're gonna do post-production on podcasts, it's like you better like it, because
yeah, exactly.
It takes a long time. And then after the compressor, you say you set the audio to -1 dB. So you're just setting the peak level to -1?
Yeah, I amplify. I use just the amplify in Audacity and just set it to -1 dB.
And that must like make the wave a lot bigger and a lot fatter and thicker, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And then it's, for me, nice and easy to edit because it's a nice loud
right
audio file that I can easily hear as I'm going through. I don't have to turn my headphones as high as I can and really sit there and go, oh wait, I think I heard him like click something, or like,
yeah. And now between tracks, so you're on one track and your two co-hosts are on the other track.
Correct.
Do you you just put both of them the peak to -1 and then you leave it, or do you kind of like listen back and try to make them even or something?
Well, before I do the compressor, like I split the file to mono, so that way each track, so that way I'm not trying to listen to one side then the other side as I edit. Split it to mono, and then I do compressor amplify for each track separately.
Got it. Okay, and then you use a Nyquist noise gate. Is that
the noise gate? Yeah,
that's a plugin you use in Audacity.
Correct.
Okay, but it's a standalone third-party plugin.
Yeah.
Okay.
You have to add it to your Audacity. It doesn't just come stock with it.
I shouldn't say standalone. It's just a third-party plugin. It's not standalone.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, because standalone means that you can open it as its own program by itself.
Oh, yeah, no.
And boom, yeah. So, okay, so then after you do that, well, with the noise gate though, do you always use the same settings with the noise gate? I assume you do, because if the level,
I do.
Okay. Yeah, because noise gates are one of those things that, well, if you can do it safely, meaning you can, like, what am I trying to say? The more precise you try to make a noise gate, it becomes more difficult. But if you're just using a general noise gate to just, like when someone's not talking, to push down their level, 10 or 20 dB, that's easy. But,
I found a setup that works for me, because I just kind of played with it with our audio to see what it sounded, and I just have left that setting as is, and it seems to work in each episode now. So
yeah, because gates are tough. Like if you don't set a gate properly, it'll start cutting off words, or even the front of words. Like when I come in and say the word Barry, like, well, that's kind of a hard consonant, so it should open up. But no, still, if the attack time is too slow, it'll cut off some of the B from Barry.
Or like if one of them pulls away from the mic and they start to really drop off, it could cut them off completely because they're faded away.
That's it.
Depending on how you have it set.
Exactly. That's actually a really good example. All right, then you do those steps, and then you edit all the audio. And like you said before, you don't like a crazy person remove everything. Yeah.
No. I remove some of the big ones, and then as I'm editing, that's when I plug in the music and anything from there. I have a friend in that I've known for a long time. He lives in California. He offered to do all the music for our show. So he's any music, like intro, outro, any music for our segments. He did that for me. So
cool. So it's like original
pretty
music.
Awesome. Yes.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, and just make sure you get all that in writing. Right?
And then after the edit, we go into Auphonic.
Auphonic, right. So all right, so how do you use the web version, meaning you upload it to the web?
I have the desktop version, so it just kind of depends on where I'm at. If I'm on the laptop, or if I have an older iMac, so if I'm on my files on there, then it really depends. I've done both.
And then in Auphonic, you set the loudness to minus 15 lufs?
Yeah, I do a minus 15. Just because for me, I was like, I like the sound of it. It works.
So see, Bandrew does the same thing, minus 15.
I started messing with it. I was like, I'm going to try each one and I'll just put a file out and just see. And that's just the one that I liked. I liked it slightly better. That's
good. See, now I would love to do that because, as I mentioned in one of my daily goodie posts, which people probably bashed me over, but anyway, it's like there's sort of like a standard, in quotes, standard of Luft's level where if it's stereo should be minus 16. And mono minus 19. But it's not an actual standard, meaning you can do whatever you want. so putting it at minus 15, hey, that's fine.
I just go by what my ears say. So my ears said this was good. Let's go with it.
There you go. And so now, in my mind, I was like, maybe I should make mine louder. And then I'm like, well, then we run into this problem. All the previous episodes are at minus 16, and if the new ones are at 1 or 2 lufs louder, then whatever. I stopped thinking about it at that point.
I'm sure all of our episodes up until, I don't know when I really kind of set on this flow, but there was always tweaks of like, oh, let's try this, and then finally I just got to this point where this works. Right. This is how I'm going to do it, and I'll just stick with it.
So the final file is stereo, and you keep it stereo because you want the music in stereo, I'm assuming.
Yes, yeah. And it originally the recording is a waveform, so I just keep it a wave and just save it off as a stereo waveform before I bring it into iTunes to convert it.
You want? I'll let you know about a super advanced ninja trick right now.
I'm all about
because
tricks.
if you are putting the final episode out in stereo, you can, if you wanted to, if you were going to be a ninja and put a black thing over your head and make sounds.
My kids are into ninjas, so they would think it was cool.
What you do, instead of combining the 2 tracks to mono, you don't put it in mono, you keep it in stereo, and you pan your voice a little bit to the left, and you pan their voices slightly to the right. That'll create a tiny bit of separation between your voice and their voices. And when I say pan it, I mean, I wouldn't go more than 10%. I think, what do I do? I think I do 10 or 11 or 9, whatever, somewhere in there. And then it's so subtle. When you listen back, it still sounds like all the voices are coming up the middle, but there's the slightest separation. So you'd be surprised. Like if you're talking, let's say you're saying how you loved Aquaman and they start bashing you while you're talking, that the separation between voices will make it much more understandable for the listener, actually. So
I'll have to test it out. I'll test out the ninja moves and see how they work.
Yeah, that's like, and if you had 3 voices, what I would say, once you have all 3 voices on separate tracks, then you put your voice in the middle because you're the man, and you put Justin slightly to the left and the Cinemaiden slightly to the right, and then you're all separated slightly, and it's wow, what a difference! Very subtle.
Okay, I'm gonna try it.
There you go. So stereo at 96 kbps, 96 kbps. M4A file, which is encoded with the AAC. Then you upload the file to Blueberry. How do you like Blueberry?
I love it so far. I used to self-host it on my GoDaddy site until last August. It got to a point where we had a couple people that we had met. They were like, "You're not on Spotify. You're not on Spotify," and I was like. To me, I was like, well, I mean, how many more downloads am I going to get on Spotify compared to elsewhere? And I was like, all right. So we looked into it, and I think we decided on I decided on Blueberry because of PowerPress. Easy to implement into our WordPress site, and we just went with it. And we've been there since August and love it. Haven't had issues or anything. So
that's cool. Yeah, and the PowerPress plugin's awesome. Right in WordPress, you can upload the file right there. Is that how you do it?
A breeze to get it up.
Cool.
Yeah, I just uploaded it to Blueberry, and then when I created my new post in WordPress, I'm like, PowerPress is there. It just boom.
Oh, you connect it through PowerPress to the file you've already uploaded to Blueberry.
Yeah.
Yeah, good. Yeah, so for other people who use PowerPress, for instance, if someone uses Libsyn as their media host, like I do, if you were to use PowerPress, you still can use PowerPress for your website, in your WordPress website. But then you have to actually paste in the media link to PowerPress.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I just click a button and it gives you a list of which one do you want to pick. It tells you which one hasn't been put in a post yet and tells you which ones have been.
Nice.
So you're like, oh, just take the most current one and it's ready to roll.
You know what would be cool is if every step when you use Blueberry like that, like if at every step or like maybe every 5 minutes or so, like just like there's a pop-up on your screen of it's like a picture of Todd Cochran just giving you like the thumbs up. Just like, hey dude, cool. And then he just disappears.
Well, when we first moved over to Blueberry, I had a problem when we moved our files over, so I had to call the help desk, and I didn't realize that it was Todd who I was talking to until after the fact. And I was like, oh
wow. Really?
Yeah.
Dude, why is he answering the phone? Jeez.
Because he sent me an email, for my fix, and I was like, oh, I had no idea that I was talking to you.
Right. Oh my God.
I was like, I listened to you on podcasts.
Yeah. Todd's awesome. I visited him when I was in Hawaii last year. That was so cool. But so I want to ask you another question, but first I just want to remind everybody.
I gotta retract that part. It wasn't Todd that answered the phone. It was Mike. Mike answered the phone.
Oh, Mike.
Man. Yeah. As I'm like, I listened to the Blueberry podcast, so I didn't realize I was talking to Mike Dell on the phone.
Got it.
Until after the fact. Yeah, not Todd. Mike.
Mike Dell. Yeah, cool. Mike Dell's awesome too.
You can just cut that part out.
No, we'll leave it. Hey, little controversy never hurt. But your show is called The Cinema Guys.
The Cinema Guys.
We are thecinemaguyz.com. Everyone should go check it out. I do want to ask you as a last question. Although, no, I don't like teasing. I don't like, because I know some people at the end of an episode, they're just like, once they hear it's almost over, they just like, okay, I'm done. They just turn it off. But anyway, can you, for the listeners, of all your experience producing your podcast, what has been your main your overall experience and maybe just a few things you've learned in general by producing your own show?
Man, I mean, since beginning, I've learned a lot. I've learned the podcast community has been awesome, which they've been very helpful, and I don't know, it's been great along the way. So I've learned a ton, and finally getting to a point that I feel comfortable with where we are, because our dynamic is finally good. I've gotten the flow down, so now it's even more fun than it was before.
That's cool.
Doesn't seem like as much work, although it's still work, but I'm having a blast and loving everybody who I've met.
That's awesome, man. And as far as like all your post-production, like you have all the settings, like for your plugins and your Audacity, you have all the settings. Do you sort of just use the same settings every time? Or
I do. I do.
But obviously you're listening to it.
Where
so
it works. Yes.
If you're listening to it and you hear something weird, you might step back and undo something or whatever.
Yeah. And I'm a person, I listen to my own show multiple times after it's released. Like, I'll even go back to old episodes and be like, oh, I remember, I love this episode. I love our conversation. Like, really? I go back and listen to my own show all the time.
Wow. I can't do that, and most people can't.
Maybe I love the sound of my own voice. I don't know, but I know the very first time I did it, I was like, I hate how I sound. I don't think I can ever listen to myself. And now I'm like, oh, I need to go back and listen to this one again.
All right, Brad Hargis, the Cinema Guys. Everyone go check it out. Brad, at the end of the show, we have to yell, sound great, right?
I gotcha.
I'll tell you when.
I'm with you.
But thank you, everybody, for listening. Check out Brad's show, obviously, frankly. And also check out podcastengineeringschool.com. Let me know if you have any questions about the school or the course and everything like that.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Chris.
Yeah, thanks, Brad. Great to have you here. We'll have you back at some point in the future when you get new gear and stuff. But all right, here's where we got to yell. All right, go. All right. Sound great. Dude.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
You walk away from me well, and you can't play that part so well. Why do you play it out on me now? You like to lose control well. It's quite a feeling, isn't it? They're floating, drifting down now. You tell me that you found something better. How should I respond?